Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly COVID-19 Public Health Update. I'm Lorna Vigili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today, of course, is our County Executive, Marc Elrich, also Dr. Travis Gales, who is our Health Officer, and Dr. Earl Stoddard, who is the Director of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Reporters, all of you should have permission to record already. If you do not, please use the chat to request it. And with that, to you, Mr. County Executive.
So I want to thank everybody for joining us this, I guess it's this afternoon, barely, and for our weekly press briefing. And we've got a number of topics we'll touch on today. Of course, we're going to start with COVID and vaccination rates. Today, we're reporting 2 cases of COVID. Our positivity rate is 0.33%, and the case rate is 0.54 per 100,000. 66% of our residents have received both doses of Pfizer and Moderna or a single dose of J&J. We continue to lead the nation for our 12 and older population vaccination rate for jurisdictions above 300,000 people. We're at 77%. We now have vaccinated a higher percentage of our Latino residents than white residents in the county. That's also true for Asian residents. This is great news, and I want to thank our Latino Health Initiative for their outstanding work. I remember when we were struggling with testing and on vaccinations to reach into this community, and we've been successful. Yesterday, I stopped by Wheaton and I checked out their vaccine clinic at Wheaton Mall and was impressed with the operation. And nice to see people actually walking up and volunteering to get vaccinated. During last week's Juneteenth celebration at Black Rock, we set up a vaccination clinic to get more people vaccinated who were coming out to celebrate that, more of the African-American population. And that was another great event, and it was in person. And I will say that, I've been able to do a number of in-person events over the last week or so, and it's really exciting. I've been to a concert, I've seen ball games, I've gone to in-person meetings with people, and it is nice to see people's faces. It's nice to take pictures with people when the smiles that people put on their faces can actually be seen because they don't have masks on. So, we're really making progress, and I know a lot of people are excited about getting back to normal. The restaurants are happy to be serving more customers again. And a lot of them have commented on the value of the county liquor policies. The changes that allowed them to do carryout is actually one of the things that made it possible for many of them to manage the period of high restrictions. And that's, of course, one of the things that's going to be continuing for a while. We're launching a new advertising campaign to encourage young people to get vaccinated. It's called Take Control, and it's running on radio, TV, and on social media. We will be suspending the vaccine site at Montgomery College Germantown campus on Friday, July 2nd, and we will transition to the Up County Regional Service Center beginning on Tuesday, July 6th, where we'll continue to offer both first and second doses for those previously vaccinated at the Germantown mass vaccination site. I'm very thankful to Dr. Earl Stoddard and our Office of Emergency Management, along with Montgomery College, Holy Cross Health, and the state of Maryland for the collaboration that made the Germantown site possible. That was really important, and it certainly helped us drive our numbers up, and wouldn't have been possible without everybody's collaboration. It wasn't very long ago that Montgomery County residents were traveling hours to get the vaccine, and the establishment of this site was a game changer for our vaccination efforts. I know that at the time, in some cases, Montgomery County was taking an enormous portion of vaccines. Our residents were getting enormous portions of the vaccines given out at the other mass vaccination sites. And we, spent a good deal of energy convincing the state that it was in their interest, in the interest of the other counties in the region, that we have our own mass vaccination site, so that the vaccines that were available in the other counties were more available to those counties' residents, as long as we had a site of our own where we could meet our local need. So we were very happy with the way that worked out. In the world of nonprofit grants, we're also thankful for the help and support that our residents received from our county's nonprofit partners over the last 15 months. As we pivot from response to recovery, we're going to continue to need the help and assistance of our nonprofit community as many Montgomery County families and businesses get back on their feet. The Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation is going to administer a new $3.4 million economic development grant program for qualifying local nonprofits. Applications will open on Tuesday, July 6th and close on July 16th. Montgomery County Economic Development Grant Program for nonprofits will provide competitively selected grants ranging from $10,000 to $20,000. To be eligible to receive grants under the program, county nonprofits must have initiatives that align with one or more of the four identified priorities: minority entrepreneurship, STEM education, research and innovation development, and small-scale manufacturing. The program will also award two selected local nonprofits with enhanced funding. One $100,000 grant and one $50,000 grant will be awarded to programs that best demonstrate a substantive impact on the Montgomery County economy. So we're excited about that. The American Legion Bridge 270 project has been a bit in the headlines of late. I will say the goalposts keep moving on this project. We continue to work with the County Council along with our state and federal delegations following last week's vote from the Transportation Planning Board to remove the toll lanes from an air pollution analysis required for all projects in the region. I have to say that, this was a TPB vote, and it would not have passed, or would have passed even if Montgomery County hadn't voted for it, because people around the region, and this began when I was on the TPB, are concerned about the continuing air pollution problems and the continuing congestion problems, despite all the money that's being put and has been put into projects. And another major road project does not seem to be the kind of project that is going to improve air pollution analysis in the region, nor is it going to do much to improve traffic once you get off the interstate. It's important to note this was not just in Montgomery County that was in opposition to the state plan. And the Transportation Planning Board's vote included votes against this project from Prince George's County, the District of Columbia, and several Northern Virginia jurisdictions. This week, the Deputy Transportation Secretary, Earl Lewis Jr., sent a letter to the Transportation Planning Board that the state would have to divert money from other transit projects and highway projects to maintain the bridge and interstates as federally required. This is kind of mind-boggling, because this project is not about maintaining the bridge and interstates as federally required. This is about expanding them. So how he's conflating an expansion project with a maintenance project is beyond me. And it is a bit alarming that the Hogan administration would threaten state funds for other projects, and he's making threats for something that has not even happened. Then it doesn't have to happen. It's just a power play. And I hope everybody sees this for what it is. And we've seen this time and time again throughout the governor's tenure, whether it's the Purple Line, the Red Line, the building of a new hospital in Prince George's County, or even the maglev train boondoggle. It is literally my way or the highway. And at times with the governor, and this is just not the way the relationship should be. We were actually engaged with the governor's transportation staff looking at the 495-270 corridor at the time he chose to push ahead, and making our discussions and negotiations absolutely meaningless. And it shouldn't have been that way. We continue to believe, I personally continue to believe that, going from the bridge to Frederick is important. The governor's plan doesn't go to Frederick. It doesn't even go to northern Montgomery County. I'm glad the governor decided to make the bridge a priority, because when he and I first talked about it in December of 2018, after I'd been elected, the bridge wasn't on his tongue. And I made the point that if you were going to start a project, you should start the project at the front of the project where the bottleneck is, not at the back of the project. And so I'm glad the governor has come around to doing that. I'm actually glad that he is taking the east side of 495 out of this equation. And I'm glad they made some changes to the configuration on 270. But the changes are still counter to what the county's position has been for over a decade. And we continue to feel that the best solution, it continues to be reversible lanes. For those of you listening at home, let's be clear about this. There's congestion, terrible congestion going southbound in the morning, and 2 lanes to relieve it makes sense. There is considerable congestion going northbound in the evening, and 2 lanes to relieve it makes sense. The problem is, outside the 3 hours when this makes sense in each direction, people aren't going to be using those lanes. It makes more sense to do what Virginia did on 95, which is to use reversibles, which would provide 2 lanes south in the morning and relieve that bottleneck, and then provide 2 lanes north in the evening, which would relieve that bottleneck. You would collect as much in toll money if you choose to do this as a toll project still, but you would have lesser construction costs to achieve this. So, it strikes me odd that we're forced to take the fiscally conservative approach to being responsible about this and to coming up with building what we need to solve the problem, while the governor seems more focused on doing a P3 deal rather than on solving the traffic problem. We would be at an agreement and able to do something if the state would accept the idea that we do reversible lanes. It solves the problem in the direction that it needs to be solved at the time that it needs to be solved. And this project will be less expensive, which means if you're doing tolls, the toll rates on our residents as well as people passing through the region would be lower. So there's a lot to gain from everybody for this. And again, our proposal, reiterates the point that you've got to go beyond 270 to stop this project at 270 and not do the reversibles north of there. It's just going to create an enormous bottleneck. It's already a bottleneck beyond 270 today. And if you then add to that funneling 2 lanes of traffic that'll disappear at 270 back into the through traffic that's already there, you're going to make a major bottleneck. And, we could avoid that. The county elected officials took this position when Governor O'Malley introduced the idea. This isn't partisan. It's not aimed at the governor personally or otherwise. It's just, we think there's a better, more cost-effective way to solve this problem. We do believe that it is a problem, and I wish the governor would just take credit for stepping up and trying to solve the problem and getting to yes, rather than insisting that it has to be done his way. We are here and willing to talk to the governor and state and how to resolve this. But we need to talk, and picking up your ball and going home because you don't get your way is not going to help us work out a solution. I think all of us want a solution. In other news, before I turn over to Travis Gales and Dr. Stoddard for any updates they have, I want to say thanks to our climate czarina, Adriana Hochberg, for the dynamic work her and her team at the Department of Environmental Protection and Department of Transportation, along with hundreds of engaged residents, did to create and finalize the county's climate action plan. This was an enormous amount of work. The fact that they were able to complete this in the year of the pandemic says an awful lot about their dedication and the sense of urgency that we put on this. While we regretted we couldn't deliver the plan on Earth Day, which would have been a goal, the important thing was to make sure we put the plan together and responded to the 500 pages of comments that we had gotten on the draft submission. So I think it's made it a better plan. We've heard, many of the comments and concerns that we got from the community, and we've made a plan that's stronger. This is our plan to 100% reduction in carbon emissions by 2035. What's clear in the plan, and we're very blunt about this, is some things are going to require partnership and cooperation with other entities. Probably the biggest is that the state's plan to clean the electric grid has them coming in line by 2045. In Montgomery County, we need it clean by 2035. Hopefully the state and the delegation and our delegates and senators will look at the increasing evidence that climate change is going to be an unmitigated disaster and choose to accelerate the greening of the grid to align with our plan. That would go a long way, a very long way to meeting future climate goals. And frankly, it's more cost effective to deal with this at the grid scale than to deal with it on a building by building scale. So hopefully we can make these changes sooner than later. As we pivot out of our pandemic response, we're going to need the same amount of energy and coordination and innovation from the government and our communities to address climate change. And, I want to, just make just a kind of a pitch toward understanding this in a COVID sense. What we learned out of COVID is that that only people could prevent the spread of COVID. Before the vaccines and those, very, very long 9 or 10 months when vaccines were something we didn't even know would arrive. The only way to control this pandemic were by our own personal actions. That's why the county did so much to focus on ways to minimize contacts so that we could control the spread of this virus. And I think residents took that seriously. And as I've said repeatedly, their work and their cooperation in doing the things we asked them to do have led Montgomery County to have the numbers that it has. Well, COVID, at least for the moment, is in a deep recession in this county. And climate change is still here. And, one of the things I've reminded people all along is that when COVID ends, every problem that was facing us before COVID is going to be facing us after COVID. And climate change is clearly continuing to face us. And the news has only gotten worse. The evidence of worsening conditions is becoming clearer every day. This is not a one-off anomaly. We are in a rapidly changing world, and we need to do something. And again, like with COVID, this is going to, at the end of the day, rely an awful lot on our personal decisions. We can't mandate that everybody buy an electric car. We can't mandate that people look at, changing out appliances from gas to electric. There are a lot of things we just cannot do by ordering people to do it. But what we need is people to bring the same realization about the importance of their actions to climate change that they brought to the importance of the actions when it came to COVID. We collectively can make a difference. We're going to work to make sure the government can partner with both individuals, with the private sector, with institutions, to see to it that we have a path forward and to help people make the changes that are needed to take this path forward. But this is something we're going to all have to do together. And if we want to leave, our children and our grandchildren a habitable world, it is on us to make those decisions that'll lead to a habitable world. I want to end by congratulating and welcoming to the County Executive's Office Ken Hartman, who's been confirmed by the Council last week as Director of Strategic Partnerships. He led the Regional Services Center. He's played a role in my administration in looking at a number of other issues that go beyond that. And I'm really looking forward to him in the directorship of the Strategic Partnerships. And anybody who's worked with Ken knows that he will do this job in a really diligently and with great devotion to getting to the kind of ends that we need to achieve. And with all that, I'll now turn this over to Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard.
Good afternoon and happy Thursday this time. I don't have much to update beyond what the county executive has mentioned. I will just briefly state where we stand in terms of our vaccine numbers. As he referenced, we do, I believe, lead the country in jurisdictions over a population of 300,000 in terms of eligible residents being vaccinated. So eligible being defined as individuals over the 12 or older. And for that category, 77.8% of our residents are fully vaccinated, and 87.2% of those in Montgomery County 12 years old or older have received at least one dose. When we look at break it down further by age, when we look at our residents who are over the age of 65, 91% of that group has been fully vaccinated, and 97.4% of that population has received at least one dose. This is extremely important because obviously we want to continue to get those numbers higher. And even as the county executive mentioned that we are consolidating our operations from the large sites, we are continuing to use data to identify zip codes and locations where we have seen lower uptake and we will double down on our efforts to, whether it's outreach or providing opportunities for folks to get vaccinated, to get that number even higher. This is important because, as you all are aware, there are variant strains that are moving through our community, and there is significant concern, for example, of the Delta variant entering into our community and causing an uptick in cases for those folks who've not been vaccinated. So I just want to say, for those who haven't been vaccinated for whatever reason, please consider doing so. There are multiple ample opportunities for you to get vaccinated, because vaccination will keep you safe, it will keep your family safe, and it will ultimately help drive down the community transmission numbers even lower than where they are right now. The last thing I would say is, it's summertime. Just a reminder, it's hot outside. Hot outside. Stay hydrated. Use sunscreen. And if you are doing any types of physical activity, whether it's swimming, boating, or other activities, make sure that you take the necessary safety precautions as appropriate to protect yourself and protect others in those activities. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, Mr. Dr. Gales, and now to you, Dr. Stoddard.
I have just a couple of comments. We continue our vaccination efforts in partnership with FEMA. We're up to approximately 5,100 doses that have been done through the FEMA partnership. I believe this week they're at Bushy Drive, the old recreation center building there, and at the Lake Forest Mall, which, as the team shared, has been a hit. Lake Forest Mall has been very popular for getting vaccinations with the FEMA team. I do want to extend the county executive's acknowledgments for all the partners that help us stand up and operate the Germantown mass vaccination site. That includes all the county agencies, but just as importantly, Montgomery College, Holy Cross, the volunteers that stood up and staffed much of the activities at the site, and also, frankly, our state partners, including the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, the Maryland Department of Health, and the Maryland National Guard, who are all actively involved in getting the site stood up, getting tents and other supplies into us. And obviously that site was very successful. The feedback we received has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's frankly I think one of our better collaborative experiences with a diverse array of partners during at least certainly during the vaccination efforts. So as we move towards shutting that site down and transitioning to the Up County Regional Services Center, I want to make sure that we acknowledge all the efforts of those people from across the board: shuttles, transportation, security, all across the board. The partnerships have been exceptional. So that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The first question is coming from Jordan Lindsay with my MCM. Jordan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. The Maryland state of emergency will lift on July 1st, meaning some COVID-19 emergency restrictions will end, with some provisions having a grace period until August 15th. What are some of those, a list of some of the things that will have that grace period, and what does this entire lift of the state of emergency mean for Montgomery County?
Thank you, Jordan, for the question. I'll take a first crack at it, and others feel free to add on. The grace periods, I think, impact transportation, also healthcare facilities, and those types of places, and congregate situations, whether they be living situations or other areas, for example, in the respective employees situations such as Department of Corrections. As it relates to the county, I think that, at least from the public health perspective, I think we've been pretty clear that there is still much value, for example, in the face covering area for individuals who are unvaccinated, whether by choice or because they unfortunately are not eligible yet due to the provisions of the vaccines. It is wise and recommended that those individuals wear face coverings where physical distancing is not possible to maintain. Now, we recognize that could potentially have impact on other decisions. We are providing guidance to a host of different areas, including the county executive, the county council, and the school systems in terms of what those recommendations would be. And those recommendations, for example, for children, are consistent with the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, who has opined from a clinical and a medical standpoint that face coverings would be beneficial for the child population due to the fact that they are not eligible to be vaccinated.
that it? You're good, Jordan?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from Caitlin Peets, Bethesda Pete, and it's director for the county executive. Caitlin.
Hi, Mark. Question for you. In recent weeks, a lot of several, I guess I can't say a lot, but several county officials have talked to me about the lawsuit involving the 5-year-old at East Silver Spring Elementary School and their desire to not fight that lawsuit and instead settle that with the family because they believe very strongly that there was harm done to that child and that family. However, several have said that it kind of comes down to your direction and what you want to do with that. So I guess I'm wondering from your perspective, if you think that continuing to with this lawsuit in court is the correct move, or if you would like to see that settled, just what you would like to see happen at this point. I think you're on mute, Mark.
You need to unmute. Thank you.
Sorry. So I haven't seen I haven't seen a proposal that's been brought to my attention from the family for a settlement. And I'm probably of the same mind. I feel that, this is best settled rather than prosecuted. But you can't settle without somebody saying this is our proposed settlement, this is what we'd like to do. And we don't even know, at least I haven't been told even what the damages claim is. So it's hard to know where we're even starting from. So I don't philosophically disagree with that.
Okay, so just to ask it maybe in a different way to be very clear on my end, you would be open to exploring a settlement option if that was brought to the table?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. The next question comes from Steve Bonnell, also Bethesda Beat. Steve.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think you all said that the mass vac site at Germantown is closing July 2nd. I was just wondering if either the health officials could expand on, because I know you've been talking about that for the past couple of weeks. We're thinking about shutting this down. Just you can expand on kind of the reasoning behind that date. That'd just be beneficial on my end.
Sure. We've been meeting on an every other week basis. So we met last Thursday, and we've been looking at the numbers literally day by day to see what the trends were with the site. And what we've tracked over time is that, I think when we spoke several weeks ago, we were doing about 150 vaccinations a day. Well, we looked at the data last Thursday and we were down to about 50 to 60 first doses a day. And we looked at what we had scheduled for second doses moving forward. And we knew that we were going to be busy, this week and next week with second doses from 3 weeks ago. But looking at the trend lines, we know 3 weeks from, this week we're in, and 3 weeks from next week, we'll be looking at 50 or 60 second doses. And so once we got down to an aggregate number that we felt like is about 100 a day, we felt like the site was just too large and we could do it in a more intimate and frankly convenient setting for both the operation of the site as well as the people coming to visit. Furthermore, obviously Montgomery College is beginning to think about getting people back in and getting education activities restarted, getting the site ready for the fall when they're going to do a more full reopening. And so we wanted to give them the opportunity to do the renovations to the buildings that they would normally do over the summer months as well. And so we waited till the data told us that we could sufficiently handle the burden that we still need to offer vaccines to at a site in Germantown. And once we reached that critical mass and we felt good about where we were at as a jurisdiction, we made that transition to another site. We didn't want to lose the site in Germantown because obviously the Up County has to be served with vaccine, but we just felt like it was a more right-sized site to do at Up County beginning that week.
So just in this kind of specific, but is the last day of operation at the Germantown site that's shutting down, is that July 2nd? Is that the
Friday? That Friday will be the last day. Obviously, that's a holiday weekend, and so we're not going to vaccinate over the holiday weekend, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But then we'll be up and operating at the Up County site on July 6th.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I do not see any further questions or requests for questions from the members of the media. Members of the media, reporters, going once, going twice. I think that's it for this afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.